Next, we cover program-specific data elements, starting with income and non-cash benefits, which is collected from most projects. Income and sources are required for all adults in a household, including HOH. The data entry for income/sources and non-cash benefits is similar to the data entry for disability. There is a yes-no question, does client have income or receive non-cash benefits, and a sub-assessment for each. Like with disabilities, these questions and sub-assessments should be answered at enrollment. However, these elements are updated as things change for the client. This field is intended to identify regular, recurrent, earned income and cash benefits. Services and gifts should not be considered income. The yes-no questions prior to the sub-assessment should be answered yes only if there is a corresponding yes to one or more sources or benefits in the associated sub-assessment. If there are no sources of income or non-cash benefits, the associated yes-no should be no. Again, answers may port over from previous assessments and programs, so there will always be a need to verify the information is correct. Don't rely on another's data entry to capture your client's information. Tracking income and sources is critical for ensuring households access all eligible benefits and for analyzing financial progress from project start to exit. Increased income is a core performance measure for most federal programs. By capturing this data throughout a client's stay, we can better design systems and partnerships to connect individuals with essential resources. You must record income for the head of household and all adult members. Enter this data into the HMIS according to your specific funder's guidelines. For instance, CoC, ESG, and SSVF projects generally exclude income earned by minor children. Remember, recording data in HMIS is for tracking and system improvement, not for determining eligibility or calculating rental subsidies. Always defer to your funder's requirements for income verification documentation. If your funder provides no specific guidelines, include minor income if it supports household expenses. Keep records accurate by creating new entries whenever income or sources change, such as when a minor turns 18 or joins the household. For clients staying over 1 year, perform an annual assessment, regardless of whether their income has changed. Always correct existing records if errors occur, rather than adding duplicate updates. When collecting information, ask specifically about each source, rather than asking clients to list what they receive. Unless required by your funder, do not demand documentation, as this can unnecessarily delay assistance. Record only current, ongoing income. If a client is unsure of exact amounts, record a yes and provide an estimate. Finally, remember that services like gift cards are not income. Student aid is typically excluded unless it includes a cash stipend, and lump sums like inheritances or back pay are considered assets, not income. While assets are not recorded in HMIS, knowing about them helps caseworkers better connect families with the resources they need. Here is a list of income sources that are recorded and their definitions from HUD. You will also have the option for Other, in which case you will specify the source in the description. In addition to recording sources, you will also record the amount they receive, and separately, you will input the total monthly income by combining all income. This total does not include non-cash benefits. Pause the video and take note as needed. You can also find these definitions on HUD's interactive data manual page. Non-cash benefits data helps determine whether households are accessing eligible mainstream program benefits at project start and allows for analyzing benefit changes between project start and exit. Indicate whether each head of household and each adult household member are receiving any listed benefits. Always enter this data into HMIS following your specific funder's guidelines. If no specific guidelines exist, include any benefits received by or on behalf of a minor or the household as a whole, like SNAP, under the head of household's record. Projects may choose to collect this information for all household members if it does not interfere with funder reporting. Records collected at project start and exit must reflect the status as of those specific dates, and the information date must correspond accordingly. A new record must be created anytime benefits change during a stay. This includes when a minor child enters or leaves the household or when a child turns 18. If a benefit transfers to an 18-year-old's new record, update the head of household's record to reflect the removal of that benefit. For clients participating in a project for 1 year or more, you must perform an annual assessment. This is required even if benefits have not changed, and the record date must fall within 30 days of the head of household's anniversary date. If you discover an error in previous records, correct the existing entry rather than creating a duplicate. When gathering information, ask specifically about each source rather than asking clients to list what they receive. Clients are not required to provide documentation, as requiring this when not mandated by a funder unnecessarily delays assistance. Ensure you only record benefits that are current and ongoing. Finally, remember that non-cash benefits are intended to identify regular, recurrent mainstream benefits. Project-provided services, such as phone cards or vouchers, are not considered benefits. Here is a list of benefits that are recorded along with their definitions from HUD. Pause the video and take note as needed. You can also find these definitions on HUD's Interactive Data Manual page. Health insurance data collection is vital for understanding if clients are accessing mainstream medical benefits and tracking economic changes from project start to exit. Your covered by health insurance response must align with the subassessment. If the answer is no, all insurance types must be set to no. If the answer is yes, you must record at least one yes in the subassessment. Only update this record when the actual status of insurance changes. For instance, a job change does not require an update provided the previous and current employer provide insurance. However, switching from private marketplace coverage to employer insurance must be recorded. Remember that records collected at project start and exit must reflect the client's status on those specific dates, and the information date must be accurate. Always create a new record if coverage changes during the project stay. For clients enrolled for 1 year or longer, you must complete an annual assessment, regardless of whether coverage has changed. This must be done within 30 days of the head of household's project anniversary. If you find a data error, correct the existing entry instead of creating a duplicate. If the answer to covered by health insurance is no, no further information is needed. If yes, record coverage for each type. Coverage through a healthcare exchange might be Medicaid or subsidized private insurance, coded accordingly. If the provider is private, record it as private pay health insurance. Finally, only record actual health insurance coverage. Do not count indigent or charity care, nor medical coverage provided through Ryan White funding. If a client's only coverage is Ryan White, record no for health insurance, and check your specific funder guidance, such as HOPWA's requirement to use data element W3. Here is the list of options for health insurance and definitions provided by HUD. Pause the video here to that note. You can also find these on HUD's Interactive Data Standards page. Collecting domestic violence data helps to provide appropriate services, ensuring the safety of staff and clients, and analyzing the scale of homelessness among survivors. For each adult, you must complete 3 specific fields. Indicate if the client is a survivor of domestic violence, specify when the experience occurred, and confirm if they are currently fleeing domestic violence. Please note that verification of these experiences is not required. When recording this data, initial records at project start must reflect the information and the date as of that start date. If a client's domestic violence status changes during their project stay, you must create an enrollment update record reflecting the date of that data collection. If you discover that a client's status was recorded incorrectly at project start, simply correct the existing record rather than creating a duplicate. Given the sensitive nature of this information, projects should implement strict privacy and safety protocols. Always ask these questions in a private location, out of the presence of any romantic partners. In cases with a recent history of domestic violence, consider delaying data entry to ensure safety, and consult with staff trained in trauma-informed care or population-specific needs. If clients are providing inconsistent information, example, indicating that they are currently fleeing an abusive situation, but their response to when experience occurred is 1 year ago or more, clarification should be facilitated by staff. Staff can help clients understand that the Hearth Act definition of a DV experience includes when a person is experiencing trauma or lack of safety related to or fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, or other dangerous, traumatic, or life-threatening conditions related to the violence in the individual's or family's current housing situation, including where the health and safety of children are jeopardized, which is broader than a specific violent episode. The definition also includes people who have no safe residence and lack the resources to obtain other safe, permanent housing. There are situations where the act of fleeing takes place weeks or months after a particular violent episode, but the conditions within the home remain dangerous. With this clarification, the staff and client together can determine the best response for when experience occurred. Current living situation is used by street outreach and night-by-night shelters to record every contact with individuals experiencing homelessness. This data element tracks the number of contacts needed to engage a client and documents their specific living situation at every encounter. The initial record occurs at project start, alongside the prior living situation. This requires an established client record and an active project enrollment in HMIS. Always refer to your specific program manuals, such as PATH, CoC, ESG, VA, or RI for further guidance. When a client situation is temporary or permanent, be sure to record the additional housing status information necessary to calculate if they are imminent or at risk of homelessness, based on HUD definitions. Street outreach projects are expected to record every client contact. This applies even if the contact happens on the same day as the project start date or the date of engagement. Note that if a client meets CoC requirements for an automatic exit, the project exit date is backdated to the date of their most recent current living situation record. Qualifying contacts include substantive interactions, such as discussing a client's well-being, housing plan reviews, or facilitating referrals to community services. For coordinated entry projects, record a current living situation if you initiate a project start, record a coordinated entry event, observe a change in the client's living situation, or if no contact has been recorded for a community-defined length of time, typically 90 days. Night-by-night shelters should only record this data when the interaction goes beyond basic daily sheltering tasks, such as bed registration, meals, or providing personal care items. For PATH-funded components, data collection is limited to specific categories from the Living Situation Options list: places not meant for habitation, emergency shelters, safe havens, other, or worker unable to determine. Finally, while mobile HMIS data entry is encouraged for fieldwork, if mobile access is unavailable, ensure client data is securely recorded and transported for office entry or relayed to a colleague via phone from a private, secure setting. Clicking Add results in the following pop-up. Start, end, and information date should all be the same date. Current living situation should reflect the client current living situation. Refer to the prior living situation data element for guidance on this element. Select the organization/project that has verified the living situation. Answer if client will need to leave their current residence in 14 days, whether that's emergency shelter, institutional stay, temporary shelter, etc. If client loses their home in 14 days, answer the rest of the questions. The date of engagement is for street outreach and night-by-night shelter. To record the date the client became engaged in project services after one or more contacts with a street outreach project or night-by-night shelter. Record the date a client became engaged by a street outreach project or night-by-night emergency shelter in the development of a plan to address their situation. Only one date of engagement is allowed between project start and project exit. This date may be on or after the project start date, and if the client becomes engaged, must be on or prior to the project exit date. If the project has not developed this intensive relationship with the client before exit, date of engagement should be left blank. If the client returns after a project exit, a new project start date and a new date of engagement is to be established once the criteria for engagement has been met. Reporting on data quality for street outreach projects is limited to clients with a date of engagement. All universal data elements and applicable program-specific data elements should be reviewed for completeness and accuracy on the date of engagement. Refer to guidance in Federal Partner HMIS program manuals, PATH, CoC, ESG, and RYH for more details. Bed night date is collected by night shelters only. This element automatically populated when NBN shelters check a client into a bed through the Shelters module. There are currently no night-by-night shelters in the Lubbock area. HUD encourages communities to explore moving-on strategies for clients in permanent supportive housing who may no longer need or want the intensive services offered in PSH, but continue to need assistance to maintain their housing. Moving-on strategies challenge a community to create partnerships between the CoC and mainstream housing programs, such as public housing, the Housing Choice Voucher Program, and HUD-funded multifamily housing providers. Moving on assistance can be a part of a permanent supportive housing project's exit strategy for a client. These are services provided to help a client move on from permanent supportive housing to other permanent housing. Instead of being part of the exit assessment, moving on assistance can be provided at any time during enrollment as services. These services are tied directly to reporting for PSH projects. To record moving on assistance, navigate to the client's profile. Click the Service Transactions tab, then click the Add Service button, and make sure the provider is a PSH provider in the dropdown. When providing a service for moving on assistance, you will first select the service, then categorize the service as one of these moving on assistance types. Housing assessment at exit is used by prevention projects to determine whether the assistance has allowed clients to remain stably housed. There are 3 questions associated with this data element. Question 1. Housing assessment at exit. This is the resulting housing situation of the person after getting assistance, ranging from client became homeless to able to maintain housing they already had. Question 2. If able to maintain housing they had at entry, what, if any, subsidies? Only needs to be answered if client was able to maintain the housing they had at project entry. Options are without subsidy, meaning they do not have assistance after project exit. With the subsidy they had at project entry, meaning they had a subsidy when they enrolled in the prevention program and still have that subsidy at project exit. With an ongoing subsidy acquired since project entry, meaning they gained a subsidy since enrolling in prevention program. With financial assistance other than subsidy, meaning they receive assistance other than a rental subsidy, like food stamps, that helps them maintain their housing. Question 3. If they moved to a new housing unit, subsidy information, meaning if they moved to new unit during project enrollment, do they receive any subsidy? Option with or without ongoing subsidy. PATH programs track services and referrals provided. These are categorized when inputting services or referrals in HMIS, not as part of program enrollment or updates. Any service provided should be categorized in one of these categories. Any referrals provided should be categorized in one of these categories. To see the PATH category options, you must be under Enter Data as a PATH project. It is advised if the provider is not in the database to send a referral from the PATH project to the same PATH project. For any referral, the outcome should always be documented in the applicable space. PATH status is used to determine if a client was enrolled in the PATH program, and if not, why. This is part of the enrollment and enrollment update procedure for PATH. Connection with SOAR is intended to determine if the client has been connected to the SSI/SSDI Outreach, Access, and Recovery Program, regardless of whether that connection was established by the PATH or SSVF provider or not. The purpose of last grade completed is to identify the educational attainment of family members served by projects, as well as, when appropriate, measure a change in education from project start to project exit for all members of the family enrolled in a program. SSVF and VASH are the only current projects that collect this information. The purpose of collecting employment status is to assess a client's employment status and need for employment services, as well as, when appropriate, measure a change in employment from project start to project exit for all heads of household and adults. Information on health status, general health, dental health, and mental health is separate from disability status. This is a first step for VA and RHY projects to help in identifying what types of health services a client may need. This element permits comparison between homeless youth to other youth their age, as well as measure a change in status from project start to project exit for all heads of household and adults. Services provided and financial assistance is used by SSVF providers to categorize the types of assistance provided and to put an amount of the financial assistance. These are recorded by providing services, not as part of the enrollment process. See WellSky documentation for services and their corresponding SSVF category, as well as SSVF-specific documentation available from your program manager or regional assistance provider. Percent of AMI is used by SSVF and VASH programs to determine program eligibility. The area median income changes over time because it is set to half the families in an area make more than this amount and half make less. The current AMI can be obtained by searching for HUD income limits or by just searching area median income in a search engine. VAMC station number refers to the nearest VA medical center. There are over 170 parent stations in the world with thousands of facilities. The nearest VAMC station to Lubbock is the Amarillo VAMC, station number 504. HP targeting criteria is used by SSVF prevention projects to record head-of-household responses to the SSVF HP eligibility screening tool. Refer to SSVF-specific resources for guidance on screening tool meaning and usage. HUD-VASH voucher tracking is used by VASH case managers to track the status of a client's voucher from referral to Public Housing Authority to issuance or denial of a VASH voucher to exit. Tracking should be input during the initial enrollment, then updated as needed, and the final status should be recorded during exit. Additionally, during exit, the exit reason should be tracked using the Case Management Exit Reasons question that is part of the exit assessment and is separate from the exit destination reason. Refer to specific HUD-VASH guidance for further details. The mental health consultation element should be completed for every veteran enrolled in SSVF programs at the time they enroll and should not be updated after project enrollment unless the information was incorrect. Veterans information is collected by veteran-specific programs to detail time in service, as well as service record, to help connect veterans with services and understand their experience. Thank you for completing this data standards video. For further guidance or reminders of the information in this video, please refer to the information sources provided in these slides or email your system administrator. If you are a part of a program that is not privately, CoC, or ESG funded, you may have some data elements that are not explicitly defined by HUD. For questions regarding those data elements, you may be referred to your program manager or program-specific regional assistance provider. Your system administrator can help you identify your regional assistance provider. To record your completion of this video, continue to the quiz. You must complete the quiz with an 8 out of 10 in order to maintain access to HMIS.